Hi, my name is Christina, and in this video you will learn about hub storage providers and cache chains. Let's look into how a typical dataset is used by looking into common ways people can read large datasets. For example, imagine you have a dataset with 10 terabytes of data. It's a common practice to read large datasets by taking a bigger server, which has a lot more space than 10 terabytes. So it's like having 11 terabytes of data. Then you need to download the entire 10 terabytes of data onto the server and then read the data. And this is not optimal, as you need to have a larger server size than your actual dataset size. Another way to read a larger dataset is by using something that can read a certain segment of the dataset. For example, with a 10 terabyte dataset, you would divide that into 10 gigabyte chunks and you would read 10 gigabytes at a time. However, there are challenges when reading such segments of a dataset. First, you need to maintain some level of cache at various places, and then secondly, you need to have a RAM that is able to fit the dataset or file system. So ideally, you would want to have the dataset to be first read from RAM. And if the data is not in the RAM, you would want to have the data downloaded directly from storage such as S3. Let's see how cache chains and storage providers can solve this issue. Let's first understand the concept of a storage provider. As the name suggests, a storage provider provides storage. And the basic methods that a storage provider needs to have is a get object, which is a uniform interface for where your data is stored, and it should have a key and a byte where you want to put it. Also, you need to have a put object that also has a key and the byte where you want to put it. By default, Hub 2.0 provides several types of storage providers. We have RAM, which we call memory, we have the file system, which we call local, and we have S3. We also have Activeloop Cloud. Let's see how these things work. Let's go back to the example of having 10 terabytes or a larger dataset, and you want to read this dataset on a server while maintaining certain levels of cache. To do this, you can create something called a cache chain. And in this cache chain, the first thing you need to do is define the memory and define the size of the memory. The next thing you need to do is give it S3, and this is the place where your whole dataset is stored. The hub read method will try to load a batch, and it will first look at the memory. And if it does not find things in the memory, it will look at the S3 location. In both places, it is calling the cache_chain method. First, it calls the memory.get method, and if it does not find it there, it tries to find it in S3. And this is a good pattern, but we can use this cache chain in a much nicer way as well. We can use the file system as well to give us a level 2 cache, and this is similar to how laptops and computers work right now. You can say you have a memory that is 1 gigabyte, and you have the file system that is 10 gigabytes, and you also have S3, which is your dataset. Now you're able to store 11 gigabytes of stuff on the local server. So when you ask for something, the cache chain will be called as well. So first, it will ask the memory, and then it will ask the file system, and if it does not have it there, the file system is going to ask S3. If S3 has it, you can give it back to the file system where the cache is updated, and then the file system gives back the data to the memory. The memory is 1 gigabyte, and the file system is 10 gigabytes. And what do you think happens when the file system gets filled? It is similar to what happens when your RAM gets filled. Things are deleted by LRU, least recently used cache, and the deleted things will be replaced by things that are being requested. And this allows you to increase the size of your memory for file systems and your S3. You can also implement your own storage provider, and a storage provider only needs to have 2 methods. You can look into the Hub open source repo to find out how to make your own storage provider, and a storage provider can even be a database such as MongoDB, Redis, and others. You can chain these storage providers for a large system for which you want to achieve high processing. For example, imagine you have a 10 terabyte dataset on S3 and you want to have 10 servers. You want each server to process about 1 terabyte of data. So you can try to read this data directly from S3, and you should be able to do that. But the S3 also has some limits, so maybe you want to create something in between. So you can use Redis for a cache chain, and Redis is a shared storage provider for all the servers. So in this example, each server can have a cache chain that looks like this. The first one is memory, then a local file system, then a shared Redis, and then S3. And this is what a typical large-scale data processing system will look like. And the benefits of a typical large-scale data processing system is that it's extremely fast and scalable. And that's it for this explainer video on hub storage providers and cache chains.